Taia te kōrero, taia te wānanga, taia te pai wao, kia auru mai rā koutou ki te ware kōrero e tū nei. Tēnei te pō, nau mai te ao. Nau mai e te ao, ki tēnei o ngā kōrero o te pai wao, e kia nei ko Taite Talks. Kia ora everybody, Che Wilson here from Che's channel, Te Pai Waho, and just a big mihi out to everybody this evening on the second Taite Talks. And really pleased to have our second Manuhiri here, and I'm just going to join him in. And we've got Te ROBB joining in to have a kōrero with us tonight, Taite Talks, and te kawa tēnei ka mihi atu kia koe, tēnā koe, nau mai, uru mai ki tēnei o ngā ware, o Taite Talks, o Te Pai Waho, tēnā koe, nau mai, haere mai. Over to you to introduce who you are.
Tēnā koe, Che. Tuatahi tēnei te tino mihi kia koe, me tō huakina I tēnei whare. Te whakawhiti kōrero ki te ruku haere e rā o ngā kōrero, ngā mātauranga. Me pāna ki te kaupapa o tai au, o Taite Talks. Tuarua ka mihi nui ki a koutou katoa, te hunga mātakitaki, te hunga whakarongo, mi tēnei pō, tēnā koutou katoa. Kia ora, my name is Te KAWA, o Te KAWA tangata. Hure tēnei o Ngāti Awa, Ngāti Rangi Nui, Ngai Te Rangi. Whānau mai ahau ki konei, ki pōneke, te whanganui ātara. Noho tonu ahau ki konei. No tonu tātou, mātou ko oku taku hoarangatira, me tō māua pēpi. Great to be here, great to join in and be part of this, Jay.
Yeah, kia ora te kawa. And for people that are still catching up, Taite Talks is a change in Te Pai Waho kōrero. On a Tuesday, we have Coho Sessions, and on Thursdays we have Taite Talks. So on a Tuesday, it's a normal Coho, as I've been doing in season 1, the first round of COVID, and then carrying on, had a break in August. We're back to season 2 of Coho Sessions, and then on a Thursday, it's bringing one of the people that watch Te Pai Waho. We had Polly Kareko last week, and we had Te KAWA. We have Te KAWA tonight. And the key that I'm doing is I'm bringing in one person one week who I know, and then the next week somebody who I don't know. And so this is my first time that I've met Te KAWA tangata Rob. Though I did share that I remember him at a kaupapa a few years ago. Hoi anō. We're going to get straight into it, everybody. And tonight it's really about handing it over to Te KAWA to start off the kōrero and ask some questions, and we'll see where we go to from there. Nō reira, kei a koe e hoa.
Kia ora. One of the things I've been really loving about the Coho Sessions, about the kōrero that's growing and developing and being shared by incredible mātanga, tohunga, is around time, and particularly with the active revitalization of practices like matariki. Listening to you and Rangi talk, gosh, it was a few months ago now, you're talking about time and talking about the maramataka and periods of and the phases of the marama. And that's been something really exciting well, I guess as a result of COVID, we slowed down and we really got to connect more with and really sort of tune in. And one of the things that has sprung to mind, which I was curious to explore with you this evening, was around particular aspects of time. So we're decolonizing time and connecting to the nights of the lunar phase, and as recently just started finally getting around to building our mara out the back of our little whare, I was looking at the maramataka and going, cool, what's the right time to plant? And I started thinking, well, is there a time within the time that's right to plant, or actions that are associated with particular parts of the day and parts of the night. I guess the scientific brain was thinking, okay, well, the tides are moving around, so the water table is shifting up and down in the whenua. Is there a right time within the cycle of the moon that is better to plant within a 24-hour period, say?
Yeah, really good question. And I suppose the first thing is, I'm not a moon person. I know my phases of the moon, but I wouldn't class myself as an expert. But what I do know is I know how to read the seasons. And it's really important that people are logging the moon phases, what you observe, as well as your mood, where you live. Because what that does is that gives you localized knowledge over a period of time. And the more that you do that, the more your body, not just your mind, but your body starts to sync. And as your body starts to sync, yes, the moon might be right and the water table might be right, but your puku might not be right. And it's about how you align your body back to the marama, the sun, the moon, the sun, the wind, and the elements generally, and then our tuakana, the plants and the animals, that will help us to then get to a space where we are able to record things. Because, you know, when you want to plant something, you definitely plant when the water table is a bit higher, so that it's not struggling for kai or for a drink straight away. Okay, and that just makes sense. You can plant in whiro, but it's going to be really hard, and you're going to have to do extra work. And, you know, it still might come out, but what our tupuna worked out and their understanding of the science of the land is that they were able to make it easier. And it wasn't just about survival, it's that they got past survival. Because when they arrived here, they already were living in the southern hemisphere, so they already knew the moon phase. You know, those that had come from the northern hemisphere, like Hawaii, they've got to shift a bit. And it will take a little bit longer to get used to things. But when our tupuna came here, the key thing they noticed was the strength of the westerly wind. And that westerly wind, which is uru and ururangi and this atua called Tāwhiri Mātia, who doesn't appear really anywhere else in the Pacific, it's a sign, that's an adaptation to the environment. The other thing around time is there will be subtle variations between valleys in an area. And I think of my home at the foot of Mount Ruapehu. We have a 3-month season for meadowberries. From one place, May, June, July. And, you know, that distance by car is probably 35 kilometres, and probably shorter by as the bird flies. But in that short distance, there's 3 months where you can travel to gather food. And so it's all about logging where you live. And especially if you've got your roots in Pōneke, definitely for a little while yet, then start to make localized notes as well. Like I've been in Hamilton now for 3.5 years, nearly 4 years. And it wasn't until last autumn, because there are certain signs that I know from home. And last autumn was where I was able to see what the variation is here. And it was a short period where the wind blew in autumn, because I've set my clock based on what my dad's taught me to start counting in autumn. Because in autumn we get these massive winds at the foot of Mount Ruapehu that are just as bad and sometimes worse than Wellington. And we've got names for them. And when those winds arrive, then soon after, the thunder and the rain will come, and then the tuna heke. And when the tuna then migrate, that's how I count that's how I start counting my year. And so I've been looking for those signs when I was living in Christchurch, when I was in Wellington, and now in Hamilton, and I was able to work it out last. So it took me three years to work it out here in the middle of suburbia in Hamilton.
Wow.
But people talk about suburbia. You can still connect to the environment. You just got to open your eyes and your ears a bit more. Anyway, I'm talking too much. So
That's incredible. And it's funny you talk about the wind, because that was something that's, well, it's present here in Te Upoko, isn't it? You know, so
yeah.
Living where in this little whare where we've been in now for 3 years, we're fortunate to have a bit of a view over the part of the harbour. And not having had that view before, it was what you've just been talking about noticing particular winds from particular directions at particular times has been really quite fascinating. And again, as one of the benefits of COVID and being locked down here was kia ata te tiro ki ngā āhuatanga o te hau e pāna ki etahi o ngā tohu. So starting to notice some of the connections between when the wind's a particular way, the clouds might be a particular way, in which case the next few hours might be quite variable. It's been a really eye-opening experience, and yeah, so thank you for sharing that.
Nā ka pai.
I guess that was the wind is a particular interest to me as well, with occasionally doing some sailing and being fortunate to sail on Waka Haurua. And was just curious again if there's kōrero that you've heard of or knowledge that you know around sort of a wind compass. I've heard discussion of wind compasses, and I think you've just touched on it earlier about particular names of particular winds.
Yeah, no, there's definitely a wind compass, and I've seen kōrero. I'm not an expert in the wind compass, but there is definitely a wind compass because you can hear it in Tauparapara. You can hear it in Waiata when they've got all of these different winds that they're talking to. And, whether it's te mā raki, te mā tonga tonga, te marangai, and mā uru, those are the four points. But then there's the subs within each quarter. And those subs each have names. In addition to that, we have hene takurua and hene raumati. And so you have winter and summer, where those are the divisions of warmth. But then the divisions of wind, as I know it, are spring and autumn. Because you have the paipai ngahuru in autumn, and then you have the haumātangi in spring, and those, and it's linked to the equinox, And it's the changes that happen because you have raumati and takurua, and in different parts of the country where they only really have a warm and a cold period, they're guided by that. And then the autumn and spring winds will change things slightly for them. In parts of the country where you have distinctive seasons, like where I'm from, it's actually the autumn and spring that note, okay, you now need, if you haven't got your garden sorted and if you haven't got your wood sorted for your fire, for your Kent fire or whatever else, then you're starting to miss the boat. And so I think the key thing with the wind is that there's some key indicators, and I'm an inlander, so what I learned was I was in Hawaii once, and I was talking to this woman, and she was explaining all of the stuff to us, and I said to her, "What's that change?" And she said, "I thought you were an inlander." And I said, "I am an inlander. I'm no good in the sea. Give me fresh water any day." But I said to her, "What's that change?" She goes, "You've just noticed the tide's turned, and and it's actually about to turn in about 5 minutes. But there's something." And I says, "Yeah, it's the wind, eh?" And she goes, "How did you know that?" And I says, "Because I understand wind." I says, "So even in the inland, if your body is and I say body because it's not just about your mind. It's a bit like pai kōrero. I always tell people your body needs to be aware, not just your eyes, your ears, but your body needs to be aware, because your body will then help direct you so that you can connect to the bird that's flying or the wind or the sun, and it's your body that needs to be aware to guide the kōrero. And so the wind, wouldn't surprise me if some of those key experts in sailing will be able to help you. And what I do know is that those that sail, the best of those navigators were also sent inland to observe the stars from on high. And my tribe happens to be one of those tribes that has one of those places, those sites, where they would come in and view the stars from the highest points in the island. And so wherever there's a high point, it's very likely that there'll be an astronomical point on that Mauna.
And used to calibrate to
see.
Yeah. So used to calibrate and to see the differences potential. So would the trainee navigators go to different high points around the country to see what the variances are on latitude and things like that?
Yeah. Well, what I do know is that they it was usually the tohunga that would go. And then when they've selected the ones that will definitely be able to carry and teach, they then take them. So I'm not sure if all went, but definitely those that had the highest knowledge, they were then taken to those heights. And because there's definitely sites on Mauna Kea where they'd go up there, rather than just, because you if you look at the Hawaiian Islands, Kaho'olawe is in the middle. And so that's where they would train a lot of their navigators, so that wherever they were, they could get back to the central island and then go back to their islands from there. And similar in the the Cooks, whether they're going to change it back to Avaiki or whatever, and same in Tahiti and French Polynesia. So it's about finding those places on high to also connect. So you're pretty interested in the environment. Tell me about your story and what got you into it. What was the thing that triggered it?
Gosh, well, first of all, thank you for that kōrero. It's mai ka kia ana te hinengaro. We've been really fortunate as a whānau for the taiao's always been present in our lives, actively present in our parents were really big advocates of, and just sometimes I just think they just wanted to get us out of the house, so actually going for a hikoi was not just to get us out of the house, but also to help us learn. And some of my earliest memories are of going with Dad into the Kaitoke Valley, just past up a hut. And with my sisters, and we would just sometimes just go for a hike and stay in a hut for a night and turn around and come back. But while we were walking, we were quite young at this point, so I think he wanted to, he was really mindful, wanted to keep us active and keep our minds going to not keep asking that question, are we there yet? Are we there yet? And so some of the games he used to make us play were, how many different birds can you hear? So we just stop and listen. How many different birds can we hear? And we, at the time we just thought it was, oh yeah, cool, I can hear 5, I can hear 3. But then over the years we started to go, oh, that's a tui, and that's a riru, and that's a blackbird, and that's a starling, and it's, honestly, those memories have stayed with me. But it was the progression of that afterwards, going fishing with Dad early in the mornings, and really clear memories of half waking up in the backpack and looking over his shoulder and seeing the fridge door open and getting the bait out, and then falling asleep and waking up halfway down this long dusty road, and then waking up again when the sun was rising, and he's already done 2 hours of fishing. So it was awesome. We were really fortunate that our parents loved being in Taiao. Mum had really close affinity to the ocean. Dad was very much freshwater and forests. So fast forward, that's what we do, and as kids, us 3 kids. So I have a real passion for the ocean, and involved in a few kaupapa that relate to the ocean, in particular conservation of the ocean. Middle sister Mahuru, she's very much involved in freshwater restoration and wetlands, and works for Manaki Whenua. And the younger sister, Te Ao Te Moana, has a real close affinity to the forests and the bush and hunting. So yeah, that's always been there with us, and each of us have always taken a different path, but we've always somehow just come back to doing something with Taiao, and doing something for the environment. So yeah,
you're really lucky. Yeah, you're really lucky. Like I know, with my parents, my biggest regret was that Dad took me hunting one day, and I got really. I said, "Come on, Dad, can I have a turn with the gun? Come on," because he'd been talking to me about it for a while, and he handed it over to me, and I was so careless with the gun. He took it off me within a minute, and I always regretted that. But what he did do after that is he started to teach me how to read bark.
Wow!
And how to read bark and go, see that tree there? That's this. That tree there, that's this. So similar to your experience of identifying how many birds, Dad taught me how to identify trees, and then in identifying trees and plants, then was able to identify birds. And Mum was always in the garden, both our little veggie garden, but also her flower garden. And so the Mum taught me the garden stuff. And Dad would, when he wasn't at work, or at rugby, then Dad would be there too, but really the garden was Mum and the bush was Dad. And so hearing your story, it reminds me of my own story around what to do, how to do it, and tēnā koe. I'm mindful of time, so do you have a final question?
So many, but maybe for another time. I do really want to thank you, for sharing this opportunity with all of us who are me present, but all of us who are watching and listening. It's wonderful to be able to dive a bit deeper and just take a moment out of our day to listen and to share and contribute. So tēnā koe.
Nice, tēnā koe, tēnā oki koe. And I think that the thing that I've appreciated about having you tonight, as well as Polly last week, is this is really different for me, and I'm just enjoying meeting the likes of yourself, reconnecting with Polly, and I learn just as much from sharing, and that's why I try and encourage people. As I said, start sharing as soon as you've learned something, because that actually helps you understand it even more and start to then grow a relationship with it. So te kawa e mihi kawa na kia koe. O te rā ki koutou katoa e mātakitaki mai ana, tēnei ka mihi atu kia koutou, I roto I tēnei pō, kia wakaere ake e nei kupu, o roto o Taite Talks. ki te tā nui o rangi nui e tūnei, turu o iti ko ka maua kia tīna, hui e, tai ki e. See you all next Tuesday for Coho Sessions. Kia ora tātou.